Hogsty.
Hey everybody, this is Alex here with you on the Hogsty. We have the full crew, Steve, Thomas, and Jamal Forrest here. We have a special guest coming up too, Steve Shoup, who we've had on, every year around this time to talk about the draft and, some of the prospects coming up. Before we get into that though, Steve has a important bit of house business, advertising. We got to make some money here, folks. So I'm going to throw it to Steve for the ad.
We are excited to announce our new partner, Symbol. Symbol is a stock market for sports that allows you to trade sports teams like stock and earn cash payouts when your teams win. Symbol has blended sports and the stock market to offer you a new way to invest in and profit off of your favorite teams without the high fees and high losses of gambling. Use your sports knowledge to buy low, sell high, and earn cash payouts when your teams win. Join the 3,000 plus early adopters who have started to invest in their favorite teams. Visit www.symbol.app or visit the link that is on our website to create a free account. And when you deposit, make sure to use a promo code HOGSTY for a $10 deposit bonus. But you can buy a share of SimWFT. The Washington football team had an exciting free agency, and if you believe in the direction of the franchise, invest with them with Symbol. Again, visit www.symbol.app/HOGSTY. I have done this. I'm invested in the New York Mets and the St. Louis Cardinals because it's baseball season, and it's a lot of fun, so I recommend it. So there you go.
There we go. All right, guys.
Can I make one more announcement real fast, Alex?
Yeah.
Before we get, Steve will like this too. I have been talking. I've heard again from the producer of the Sean Taylor movie. They are still moving forward on it. They are developing the early production schedule. They are looking to a 2022 production.
Nice.
So there you go.
2022. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Right around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys.
I'm gonna find a way to get featured in it. You know what I'm saying? Try to reach out to him if you can, Steve, so I can be what I'm saying, just to.
We're gonna have it on the show again soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and
yeah,
I threw
yeah.
some money at. I remember
you know
when we had them on the show, they said if you give, I don't remember what the number was, $100, you get to at least be an extra. So I threw $100 at them. So.
Yeah, that's over.
I missed that part. Okay.
I will. I'll wave on the camera for you, Jamal.
All right. Yeah. Okay. That'll work.
All right.
As long as I get that feature, I need to make sure my face is seen. I get to talk about Sean Taylor for a second. That's it.
All right, guys. Let's get into this. Shoup, thanks for coming back on the show. Always good to see you. I think this is the first time we've done it via webcam with you too, so that's gonna be a nice. That's a little bit of a change.
Not that the fans can see it, but
no, they can't, but we can, and that's what matters. So let's get into this. Steve Shoup of Fanspeak started that site. When did you do that? 4 or 5 years ago that you did that?
No, it's our first year with the draft simulator was, I believe, 2014.
2014. Okay. So, wow. That's a long... Well,
yeah.
The original draft simulator site. I think, there are a lot of folks who have copied it now, but you're the pioneer of that, which...
Exactly.
Which is very cool. So let's get into this draft. I think, everyone knows the big topic this week in Washington's fan base on social media, thanks to the beat writers or the national writers. This talk about Washington possibly moving up in the draft because they're supposedly in love with Trey Lance. Let's kind of start with that whole discussion because I don't know if this is a fair question to ask you, but the amount of capital it's going to take to move up is an insane number. But let's start with talking about that and talking about these quarterbacks that everyone's enamored with this year. It really seems like more than most seasons, folks are really focused on these top 5 quarterbacks now.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with 2 factors. One, you have this just really weird, pandemic year where college football was just not anything close to normal. And on top of the college football season being normal, not being normal, you didn't have an East-West Shrine game. You didn't have the in-person combine. You're not having the visits. We saw that at the tail end of last year, and the pro days are much more stranger. So I think a lot of people are really up in the air about a lot of prospects. And so if you're going to invest a pick, the payoff for a quarterback, even if it takes a couple years for them to develop, and look at Josh Allen, his first 2 years in the league, he really did nothing of significance. I mean, they made the playoffs the second year, but it was not on him. It was more on that defense. And then this past year, he takes off and is one of the top 5, top 10 quarterbacks in the league, and they look like a great team for the future. So even if it's a couple year payoff, because you feel like these prospects maybe aren't 100% NFL ready because they didn't have that college experience, they maybe didn't have some of these other experiences. Quarterback is the one position where the value is still always there. And then, of course, the other thing that we have is we've kind of seen the bill come due. All these veteran quarterbacks, we've just seen more and more retirements in recent years. Eli Manning, Philip Rivers, et cetera, et cetera. And then we're seeing the fall off in others, guys like an Alex Smith, who, whether due to injury or just natural, Alex Smith's case, the injury, but others, Andy Dalton, he was a solid established starter a couple years ago. Now he's a backup. And then, the failure of some recent draft picks, the Mariota, Winston, Goff, like he'll still be starting this year, but he's not the Lions maybe long-term quarterback. So, and then of course, just absolute disasters like the Haskins situation with Washington. So, it's just all kind of coming together where very few teams have a good quarterback situation, not just for this year, but even a couple years down the line. That's why you even hear a team like the Falcons might be interested in a quarterback, even though they have Matt Ryan. But, he's in his, mid to late 30s now, and it's how many more years do they feel comfortable getting by with him? So
sure.
I think it's just a combination of the two that's just pushing these quarterbacks up. And then outside of a handful of other elite prospects, this is just not as strong of a top-heavy draft. So again, if you're spending that high draft capital, put it at a quarterback where even if they're a passable starter, a Derek Carr, somebody like that, the value of a Derek Carr, if we redid that draft, Derek Carr would easily go in the top 10, top 15. Sure, there are some all-pro guys from that draft, and Aaron Donald, Mike Evans, guys like that. But Derek Carr is just as value as being a quarterback, a starting caliber quarterback, would still push him that high.
Kent, look, let's just start. Alex tells me that the hellscape of Twitter has decided that Trey Lance is the guy Washington likes the most. And I'd like to start with him in terms of quarterbacks because I think he's the most fascinating. I don't really get it, personally. I don't get it at all. I don't like his ball he throws. I think he's a read-first runner who's played 17 games at North Dakota State. I don't understand, other than the athleticism, which is clearly there, why teams are so fascinated with him and why he's considered to be a top-of-the-draft pick. So tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, I think that's an extremely good question. And I think your line of thinking is actually very similar to the rumors we've heard coming out of San Francisco, where they make the big trade to come up to number 3, and everyone thinks, oh, is it Justin Fields? Oh, is it Trey Lance? And, the rumor is it's Mac Jones. And why could it be Mac Jones? Well, Mac Jones just had a complete college year compared to these other guys. Lance, who played 1 game, Fields, who basically played half a season. And of course, the SEC is just the best competition. And he dominated, but then he got to go to the Senior Bowl, got to impress scouts there. And, are Fields and Lance, do they have higher upsides? Absolutely. But Mac Jones is probably one of the safer quarterbacks. It's like Mac Jones is probably a lot closer to a Kirk Cousins than a Josh Allen. And, you can win with the Kirk Cousins type, Cousins, Derek Carr, those types of quarterbacks.
Sure.
They might not take you to the Super Bowl, maybe not. But, the 49ers, of course, being a team that were so close to a Super Bowl victory with Jimmy Garoppolo, could feel like just a small bump up keeps their window alive. As for what that means for Washington, I think they could see it similar. I mean, they made the playoffs last year, albeit in a weird year with, Dak Prescott out and Eagles just completely rebuilding. But they made the playoffs last year with, just a horrid quarterback situation. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. Haskins was not good. Allen gets hurt, and his play was only a little bit better. And then, Alex Smith, they won some games with Alex Smith, but his numbers, it was on the defense. It was on, some of the running back game and just the way they utilized some of these players. So, I feel like, this is why they went out and got Ryan Fitzpatrick for this year, but long term, he's not the answer. And if you don't think Allen or Heineke are the answer, you need to go get a quarterback. And, with guys like Lance, he's extremely inexperienced. I mean, we're talking under 400 passing attempts in college.
And he hadn't played in a year.
And he hasn't played in a year. 400 passing attempts in college and against low-level competition. It's not like, Josh Allen, who went to a smaller school, or even Carson Wentz, who went to the same school. They had much more extended careers. And then, again, both of those guys went to the Senior Bowl, which, that is a good testing ground for quarterbacks. We've seen that over the years. So I love Lance from an upside, tantalizing prospect. And, if you asked me this, I guess a year ago we knew that there could be a weird college football year. But if you asked me, say, last February, Trey Lance is a future NFL quarterback, and I'd say, boy, sky's the limit with this guy. And I'm really excited to see what he does next year. And if he has a huge year and comes out, I think he could be a top 10 quarterback, a top 10 pick. But that didn't happen. He didn't have that year. He didn't get the chance to wow at the combine. And right. I know that there's pro day and all that. And it's risky. There's no other way to put it than risky. But if you believe that mentally he's ready to make this jump, because it's a huge jump from North Dakota State to the NFL, then give it a year or two. That's why you went out and got Ryan Fitzpatrick. But yeah, you'd be talking about a major trade up for a guy that probably is not going to see it down this year. He's probably not even going to be active on game days.
Yeah.
So there was a point where you mentioned Mac Jones, right? Now I'm not as against Mac as the Twitter universe would like to express their against Mac. I'm open to listening to why he'd be the best fit. So my question to you is, it's a two-parter, but my question to you is, there was rumors as well that, I don't know how legitimate they are, but there was rumors as well that San Fran traded up to possibly take Mac Jones. That the first part is, how likely is it, do you even think that they'll take Mac Jones, or is that all for show? But secondly, is for those who are for Trey Lance but against Mac Jones in the Washington fan base community, how can you, what would you say to convince them why Mac Jones could be the better pick over Trey Lance?
Yeah, like you said, those rumors that come out, I mean, they change all the time. Some end up absolutely being true. Others are just complete fluff. So as for the 49ers and Mac Jones, I think it's a legitimate possibility, just given Kyle Shanahan. I think, he's not looking necessarily for the biggest arm quarterback, the most athletic quarterback. He just wants a guy who can run his offense, hand the ball off, and then they're going to win with their defense. So I think that's Mac Jones. So I could see it. I mean, but to me, it's a high price. I have Mac Jones as, I think, ideally more of a very late first round, early second round type of guy, and you're trading up to number 3 to get him. But that doesn't mean I think he's a bad quarterback. I mean, I think that, again, that's kind of a someone in that Derek Carr, if you kind of look at a Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins. I know Tannehill went much higher, but these guys, they put up good, decent numbers every year. They're, are they ever going to pull a Aaron Rodgers or a Patrick Mahomes and just carry a team on their back and put up 500 yards and 5 touchdowns against the best defenses in the world week in, week out. No, they're not, but they're gonna be good. I mean, you look at, Cousins has basically been statistically a top 10 or top 12 quarterback since 2016. Derek Carr's coming off a good year. Got Ryan Tannehill, since he took over for Marcus Mariota a year and a half ago, has had the Titans with 2 solid playoff runs. So those types of quarterbacks you can win with. You need everything else to go right if you really want to, win the Super Bowl. But I think for a lot of teams, you need to look at it that first you got to, you need to walk before you can run. And if this quarterback can get me to the playoffs, he might not have the highest upside, but it could still be worth it. So from a Washington fan base perspective, Mac Jones would be a big upgrade over what they've had since Cousins left. And, and this year you wouldn't even need to put a ton of pressure on him with Ryan Fitzpatrick there. Again, you were a playoff team a year ago. Why, Mac Jones can keep that train rolling and actually compared to somebody like Trey Lance, who might need to be like Josh Allen and take 2 or even 3 years, especially given his lack of experience. What happens to, Washington if, Ryan Fitzpatrick keeps him competitive this year, but then in 2022, 2023, Lance just isn't ready to play at that high level. So that could be a reason to go for somebody like Mac Jones.
So when I look at what could happen in this draft, I went back, looked at some of the trade ups from teams trying to get in the teens up to that top 5 range. And to me, the price is just too steep. On average, it's going to cost you, let's just say assets, 4 to 5 big assets, first-round picks, starters, some combination of the two, other high draft picks. That price is just going to be too steep, in my opinion. If you're talking about you need to give up 2 years worth of first-round picks and maybe even add in a starting defensive player, I don't see them making that move necessarily. This seems like a fairly conservative, front office right now in terms of those kind of things. So I'm really going to start. I want us to talk about these day 2 prospects, that next tier down of guys, because, you brought it up a few times. We have Fitzpatrick. You can put a guy in here, let him sit for a year, and see what happens. And it doesn't, cost you anything. So I think they're the 2 big names everyone talks about now. It's Davis Mills and Kellen Monde. I've watched a little bit of Mills and Monde, highlights here and there. Mills really does look like a Kirk Cousins clone in how he plays. So is Monde a better pick for what this team's trying to do, being more of a downfield, mobile quarterback, attacking, everywhere type player? Or what do you think about those 2 guys?
I'll be honest. I am not a huge Kellen Mond fan. I do think he very much improved this year, but again, we are talking about a very odd year.
Sure.
He went to the Senior Bowl, and one, you definitely saw a gap in the practices. I was not able to attend the Senior Bowl this year, but just watching the practice footage, you saw a big gap between Mac Jones and everyone else. But Mond's, Monde just seems to me like a guy who's much more likely to be a long-term backup in this league. Maybe spot start, but I don't see a ceiling for him. I think he's a good solid floor guy. He's not going to wash out of this league and bring back no value, but I just see him much closer to. He's got a little arm talent, got some athleticism, but I just see him as a guy who, will get taken somewhere in like that 3rd round area and maybe starts for a year. But I just don't see he's a guy that you build an offense around and long term around. I just don't see him rising to that level, and. So to me, I don't see a big gap between him and then hypothetically what Allen and Heineke can do. So,
well, I don't see the point in Washington drafting any of these mid-level quarterbacks personally, unless somebody happens to fall. Like a Mac Jones, I think is a guy who could maybe fall because he doesn't have the arm talent. I think he's placed for Alabama, which automatically brings questions because there's so much talent around him. So, like, if a guy like Mac Jones falls to round 2, fine. But I don't know if I see the point in drafting like a Kellen Mond because they've already got 2 Kellen Monds on the roster. What they need is a starter. That's kind of my view of it. So let's move to, I guess, probably the biggest need on the team, Washington here as linebacker. I think we can all agree that's certainly one of the biggest needs. So I think that's a likely pick for Washington in round 1. I know you've got a couple on your board. I know you've got a couple linebackers at the top here. Micah Parsons at Penn State, the kid whose name I can never pronounce at Notre Dame, Owazu Koromo, I guess. Tell me about the linebacker group and what you think about the top end linebacker group.
Yeah, I think Washington definitely could use a athletic linebacker. We see a lot of top defenses have that type of guy. We saw Tampa a couple years ago draft Devin White in the first round, and their defense looks pretty good now. I mean Parsons. There's some off the field concerns. I don't know.
What are the off the field concerns with him?
I don't know enough about it, so I don't really want to comment. That he's had a few maybe run-ins with disciplinary stuff, but
there was a hazing incident. That's what it all stems from.
And I don't want to knock him completely for that. This is the type of thing that ideally gets figured out at the combine, at the pro days, at the interviews, and they're still obviously interviewing them and doing all their due diligence. So, I mean, he's an elite talent. The guy who just the more that I watch, the more that I love is Uwasu Koromoa. I mean, this guy just flies across the field. He's actually from Virginia, played in Hampton. So, there's a little bit of a local tie there, but his athletic ability is basically off the charts. I think, had there been a combine, everyone would have been talking about him. Assuming he does the drills, and he would have just blown up the combine. I also, watching Notre Dame this past year, particularly, his instincts seem to be high level, for a college guy. So I think he's a guy who is going to come in and, kind of fill that role similar to the Devin White did for Tampa. And he can cover tight ends, cover backs. He is going to be excellent in run defense. If he slides to 19 just because of, the quarterbacks pushing people down, all those top wide receivers, I would definitely go all for him. And even a guy that maybe, you trade up a few spots, say to, 15 with the Patriots or something like that to grab him, because I do think he's the type of guy who, Ron Rivera wants, not a true Luke Kuechly, but has that upside, has that potential to just be that star backer for you. And the good news is there's even guys beyond that. I mean, guys like Xaven Collins, guys like Jared Davis or Jermaine Davis. It's actually a fairly decent linebacker group. Not all these guys are first rounders, but if you don't go in the first round because something else happens, you're probably going to have a pretty decent guy in the second round or third round who could definitely upgrade this team and this group of linebackers that you have.
Let's talk specifics here a little bit. I think what Washington needs is, one, a middle linebacker. John Bostic's average, I think, safe to say, and I think he's probably more of a strong side backer anyway, realistically. And then they need a weak side backer. So of this group, are there players that fit those roles better than others in terms of the top few that we've talked about? Collins, the Penn State guy, Mr. Notre Dame, whose name I can't pronounce.
Just say JOK. That
that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do think I think all these guys could fit a specific role. Xaven Collins is a guy I really like in that middle linebacker type role.
Yeah.
He keeps coming up for me on my FanSpeak mock drafts in round 2.
Yeah, and he's a guy that could slide because I don't know if he'll fit every team as perfectly. I like him a lot. I think he is a guy that if he's there in round 2, that would be my player in round 2. I mean, he could sneak into the end of round 1. Just big, physical, again, really athletic. I go back to, had there been a combine, I think a number of these guys would have blown the combine up.
Mm-hmm.
Just watching them on tape, you can just see the natural athletic ability. So, with Washington needing, kind of like you said, multiple needs at linebacker. I mean, I am a pretty big Cole Holcomb fan. I think he's a good, solid guy. But beyond that, it's pretty thin right now at linebacker for Washington. And so, again, it's a strong class. If you go round 1, I think your choices are Parsons or Uosa Kamoa. Round 2, I think you got guys like Collins, Nick Bolton, Jamin Davis, Jabril Cox. Round 3, maybe like a Chaz Surratt from North Carolina, pair him with Cole Holcomb, have a UNC linebacking core. But, Baron Browning's in the mix there. Pete Werner, those Ohio State guys are pretty good. So there are guys. And then you have the whole Dylan Moses coming off major injury, Alabama. It's tough to know, obviously, what his medicals check out as. If he doesn't have that injury a couple years ago, he's a first-round talent. Where teams see him due to the medical, I think, is a big question mark.
But it sounds like we're at least from the names you kind of ran off, I feel like there's at least 6-7 really good linebackers in this class. Maybe not, they're not all on the same level, but I would. Yeah, they could all be starters.
It seems crazy that one of them is not going to be drafted in either rounds 1 or 2 by Washington.
Yeah. So let me ask, well, because you did name quite a few, and some you mentioned may not even be first round prospects. But who do you think? I guess if you had to name 2, is the best fit for Washington, or is it the obvious answers that we covered just now? In terms of the first round picks, Owusu and Parsons.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are the 2 obvious guys. I think those are basically top 15, top 20, clearly top 20 talents any way you cut it. And if they're there at 19, they are a no-brainer pick. I mean, they will fit your defense as you need it. They're both sky's the limit. I keep going back to Devin White, but again, that was a highly athletic first-round pick linebacker who turned that defense into an elite defense. And another, again, highly athletic linebacker from that draft, Devin Bush. You look at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's defense was one of the best in the league, and still was pretty good later in the year. But boy, when Devin Bush went down, then they had a couple other injuries. That defense took a turn, and Bush was just that guy who, after he went down, you saw tight ends start to really eat them up a little bit. Obviously, Logan Thomas did when Washington played Pittsburgh. So those are the type of linebackers that, I mean, that's what this league runs on now, is those types of athletic linebackers, guys who can cover tight ends, and even against the elite tight ends, even against the Wallers and Kelseys, they might not be able to completely take them out, but they can slow them down enough to get some safety help and all that. But those are the types of linebackers that you need in the NFL. And I mean, Parsons and Owasu Kamoa are both those guys. And if they're there at 19, those are guys you just call that pick and you'd be very, very happy with. And I think that's, those are the types of guys Ron Rivera is looking for. Because again, that Kuechly connection, that's what ran that defense in Carolina. He's got the defensive line with all these guys, Sweat and Young and Allen, et cetera. You need that linebacker behind him.
Yeah, two defensive guys who are linebackers coaching this team. They need a great linebacker. You did mention the free safety need. If linebacker is super deep, free safety, I don't even think to call it shallow might be an overstatement. This is not a class where I think they'll find their free safety of the future. But are there any ones? I did a write up on our site of the some of the free safety options. I didn't see anyone who's an obvious starter. But what about you? Do you see anybody in here who could come in and maybe take that spot, surprise us?
As a true free safety, not really. I think there are some good safeties in this draft, but mostly project to be strong safety types. I think the one would be Trayvon Martin from TCU. I think he could, he has enough range to be a free safety, and
but he is still more of a strong safety.
I think he is, but he's the one guy who I think could kind of go and play either spot depending on what your team needs. So, he would be the one guy that I'd really point to. And I think he is, better at being a strong safety, but I think he can play free safety.
What about Xaven Collins from Oregon?
He's a guy that I like, but I feel the safety group is definitely a step back. Your Mooring is like the one guy who I see 5 years from now being a Pro Bowl, All-Pro type guy.
Sure.
Outside of that, you're going to have some starters, but I don't think, a lot of necessarily high-end guys. I mean, there could be some surprises, and Holland is a guy with some upside, but not a guy who I don't think he's a year one starter necessarily. Maybe by the following year, 2022, he's your starter. But safety is just not a deep group for me.
No, I don't think it is for anybody. And, the one guy you're mentioning, he's the only one that you see projected as a first rounder of all these safety. Everyone else is second, third. And even then, there's only maybe, 2-3 guys who will probably get drafted in those rounds.
It may be safety by Band-Aid.
I think,
again.
Well, I mean, the guy from Oregon, I feel like there's guys like him, you could put them back there. They're not going to be playmakers, but at least it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Better than Troy Apke, maybe. That's our threshold we're going for.
I ran into something. I guess I want everybody's opinion, Alex, Steve, and Steve.
Sure.
I think I ran into this comment because I didn't watch Cameron Curl in college, right? I'm not going to sit here and act like I did. I didn't watch Cameron Curl in college, but somebody mentioned that he was capable of playing free safety because he did it in college to some extent. Now, is it true that in this context, is it true that because we didn't see it in Washington so far, that means that it's not possible? And with that being said, can Cameron play free safety here and we'll find a way to have Lane and Cameron on the field versus Cameron taking over the strong safety role? Is that a possibility, or do you think it's a possibility from you guys' perspective? Like I said, I didn't watch Cameron in college, so I'm not going to sit here and say that it is or isn't. But I think it is something we're paying attention to if we're focusing on the fact that we need a free safety. Well, Cameron can do a lot of things. Well, I'll just stop there. What do you all think before I say anything?
I mean, it would be the most Washington thing ever to find a steal in the draft who's a strong safety and decide to move into free safety. I think that's nuts.
Well, before we continue, I'll just clarify. I'm not saying he's playing. I'm saying it's interchangeable with the things that he can do. So he's not primarily always going deep, if that makes sense. He's not always playing single high. I'm saying he can play that free role. It lessens the need to try and find a prospect and hoping that they're that guy. Unless you find a veteran in free agency. and that's also a problem too. But that's where I was going. Like, it's versatility is the part that I was trying to expound upon.
Educate us, Steve.
Yeah, I would say I can't recall him playing a lot of free safety in college. Maybe a little when he was younger, because I believe he was recruited as a corner and played that a little bit. I'm trying to think back, but he just was definitely much more profiled as a strong safety. I really took notice of him at the Senior Bowl that year, and got excited that he could be a late round guy to look at. Could he play free safety in a pinch? Yeah, I think so. And maybe that's just what you have to do this year, because you can't, get rid of Landon Collins' contract, and you got to hope that he can get his value back. I think you're going to be limited a little bit with both Collins and Curl out there against certain receivers, certain tight ends. But against others, you're probably in a better spot. So, one positive is with like a William Jackson signing and a Kendall Fuller, is you got two pretty good outside corners now. Maybe they don't need as much free safety help over the top. Maybe you can have both Curl and Collins out there and not be as exposed as you would say a year ago when you didn't have Jackson out there at one of the corner spots. But so I think certain teams could take advantage of it more, but it's probably passable. Curl and Collins are both, assuming Collins can come back pretty well, talented guys, athletic enough. I just don't think you're maximizing where they fit best is what it boils down to at the end of the day. But for another year, until you can kind of more adequately get out of the Collins contract, maybe it works.
I think that a very important factor that needs to be mentioned here is how much cover 2 are they going to be playing next year. Washington for the past several years has been a cover 3 team for the most part, but that's not to say that Jack Del Rio doesn't change the balance here. And if it's a cover 2, obviously you're playing high quarters, high halves coverage, in the field. So we're really talking about cover 3 here when you're say strong safety, free safety, and I think it sort of remains to be seen. But to me, putting Cam Curl in a free safety role on a regular basis is kind of like, you find a nice Cadillac SUV and you decide to throw it in an off-road competition. It's not really why you have the Cadillac. It can do it maybe, but that's not why you have it. Right. That's kind of the way I see Cam Curl as a safety. They found a decent role for him. He was a surprise. He has talent. I think you sort of want to leave him doing his thing. That would be my view of it.
I mean, their best combo last year after Collins went down was really the whole Everett Curl, both playing safety, and neither of them are true free safeties.
Yeah.
But Everett kind of more balanced, I think, so he defaulted to that safety role too. Well, let's flip back to the offensive side of the ball in some of these picks. Tight end, obviously the big one is Pitts. No way Washington gets him. He doesn't get out of top 5, right? So,
I don't know about top 5.
Yeah.
Well, one thing's for sure, it's top 10. We know that much.
Yeah.
I was saying, if we don't know about top 5, one thing's for sure, he's top 10.
Yes. Yeah. So that's true, because we might just see 5 quarterbacks taken in a row. Who knows? Outside of him, who are some guys that they could possibly look at in that? We got 2 third-round picks. I feel like one of those has got to be a tight end, because we also just released Thad Moss. So now I don't think they have any backup tight ends left.
I'd like to hear about Pitts in particular. He's supposed to be the next coming of Tony Gonzalez. I mean,
there's that too.
Is he really that good?
So if you want to talk about that, but I'm curious more who could be there in round 3 that might be a good, especially a blocker. We need a blocker.
Yeah, so just addressing the whole Pitts thing, and this is actually something I think actually doesn't get talked about much at all, but I totally agree. He's very likely to go in the top 10, but I think top 5 is too rich. I mean, you hear people talk about Atlanta or Cincy, but at the same time, you got guys like Sewell, offensive tackle, who either team could use, and then the 3 receivers. Tough for me to see Pitts taken above those receivers. especially when you could maybe pair Jamar Chase with his, college quarterback Joe Burrow if you're the Bengals. Tight ends in the first round, we don't have a great track record. A couple of years ago, we saw, the two Iowa kids, Fance and
The other one.
The guy Lions took is escaping me right now, but
Hawkinson.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, both have been good. Neither has obviously turned that team around, as both those teams are drafting.
O.J. Howard was the other one that was like God's gift to tight ends, and he had been a bust. But
in a couple years prior, you had three tight ends: Evan Ingram, O.J. Howard, and David Njoku. And I mean, Ingram's been the best of that bunch. Njoku was so good that the Browns went out and paid Austin Hooper big money, and then followed up with the third-round tight end. And of course, O.J. Howard. Cameron Brate has done essentially just as well as expected, and then they go out and get Gronk. Right. Not that Howard doesn't still value and still young enough to rebound his career and all that, but it's we saw Mark Andrews and he's been good for the Ravens, but unless your name's Travis Kelce and I guess George Kittle and maybe Darren Waller, it's just drafting a first round tight end just doesn't seem to pay off. Or like the value that the tight end position brings just doesn't pay off unless you're those types of guys. I mean, there's a lot of really good, decent tight ends out there, and I think Pitts will go that high again, partly because the certainty factor. You do know he's going to be a good player. I think that's pretty clear. Mm-hmm. And what we talked about earlier about this just being a weird year, and then a lot of positions are kind of down this year. But I see it more later half of the top 10. 8, 9, 10 range, and maybe not those teams, but maybe somebody trading up. Chargers, who I think are, obviously just lost Hunter Henry, could move up a couple spots. A few of those other teams in that mid-teens range. So if Washington wanted, obviously you'd still have to go up some assets, but maybe if Pitts is sitting there at pick 9, you go to make the jump. But the thing that Pitts has for him is obviously he's also clearly above every other tight end in this class, and that carries a lot of value for sure. There are some decent second, third round options. One guy you mentioned in the third round that I would point to is Hunter Long. I didn't watch him much prior to this year. But he had a nice year for Boston College. He's got the size to be a blocker, hasn't really shown himself to be a great blocker yet. But he's 6'5", 250. Really catches the ball well. I think that with the work with an NFL weight room and stuff like that, he's got the frame to be a good blocker. So I think that could come. I don't think it's as natural as you'd probably like. So he's a guy I'd look at in that third round range. I think the another guy in that second, third round range, kid from Penn State, Pat Fioremuse. Again, not the greatest blocker, but would give Washington a clear tight end. Yeah, tight end to grow and develop.
He's a big guy. He can maybe be taught to block.
Yeah, and same principle is a lot of these college guys, they just don't. I mean, probably Tommy Tremble from Notre Dame is another guy. Brevin Jordan from Miami. Those are kind of the guys I see in the top 3 rounds that are interesting.
The whole college spread offense issue when it comes to tight ends, I think I've heard a number of people talk about how because colleges are all doing spread all the time, tight ends just aren't properly taught what to do, as traditional tight ends. They're just playing like big slot now, most of the part.
Yeah, I mean that is pretty much. I mean, look at for as good as Pitts is. I mean, he's not a great blocker. He's just that big slot. I mean, he's probably more comparable to a Mike Evans or DK Metcalf than a tight end. He's just slightly bigger and than them. And again, he's a very talented guy. But yeah, I would not ask him to go out and be my premier inline blocker for sure.
I don't think you'd want a guy like that to be your inline
No.
blocker on a regular basis
No.
anyway.
You would, if you're going to pay anyone to do that, you don't pay him first round money.
Yeah.
Also, you wouldn't want to take a chance of getting him hurt and beat up.
Right.
And that is what makes guys like Kittle and Travis Kelce pretty much rare exceptions, is they can kind of do both. I think Pitt's the more obvious comparison is somebody like a Darren Waller, who just these last 2 years with the Raiders has just shown. And he was a big 6'6", 235-pound receiver at Georgia Tech. I remember him at the East-West Shrine game. And there was talk then that, he might need to convert to tight end. And then, eventually that conversion comes, and now he's almost impossible to guard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's Pitts. But, Waller's not a guy you see inline blocking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. The other big need, of course, we have is tackle. Now, Penei Sewell is not going to be on the Washington football team. Alex Leatherwood, round one guy. I don't know if he's really a tackle, NFL tackle. There's a couple other guys. What are the options for Washington at tackle?
Yeah. For me, from Washington's perspective, I think the two linebackers, Parsons and Uosa Kamoa, that we talked about earlier, are definitely options for the 19th pick. But if it's not that, and you're not trading up for a quarterback, then I think you got to go offensive tackle. I really do. I just think that we know that Jerron Christian isn't the answer. Lucas, did okay down the stretch, but that's not the long-term answer. And just generally speaking, Rouye is your linchpin at center for the next couple of years, but Brandon Scherf, we don't know his long-term future, and Morgan Moses. He's solid. He's a warrior. He's out there playing every time. He's a leader on the team. You hear that all the time, that he's like the first guy in the building every day. But his play has fallen off some, and his contract's gotten a little bigger. So
he's also getting up there.
Yeah, he might not be he might have 1 or 2 more years. So even if you take a guy, and I think Leatherwood is a perfect example. Some say move him to guard. I think he is a long-term right tackle. And kind of going back to the, like the John Jansen days, who, Washington spent a high pick back on John Jansen years ago, and he was always going to be a right tackle. He was never going to be a left tackle. Now, I think Leatherwood can play left tackle, but I think his best position is right tackle. So you might have a situation where you draft him to play left tackle for a couple years and then shift him over to right tackle. A guy like Leatherwood, Tevin Jenkins, Liam Eichenberg, these guys aren't the next Trent Williams, but they can be good, solid starting tackles, all at left tackle, at least in the immediate future now. I think the question is, does a Christian Darrisaw from Virginia Tech, is he still there at 19? He's got the upside. I mean, he's not Trent Williams day one, but he's got some potential to be a really, really good left tackle. He's kind of more of a mixed bag, so you're probably going to have some peaks and valleys with his play early on. But I do actually like Alex Leatherwood and Eichenberg from Notre Dame as well. I think those are kind of like the plug and play guys that you feel very confident. They're, again, not necessarily going to be all pros or pro bowlers, but they're going to be 10-year starters in this league. Maybe kicking a right tackle at some point, but they're going to be 10-year starters in this league. And again, for a Washington team that was in the playoffs last year, those are guys who can push you, who you draft them, they're starting, and they're helping you out day one. There's not a lot of and obviously both played at a very high level. Both were on very good teams this year, and especially Leatherwood. I mean, just that playing in the SEC, playing on Alabama, that championship, we know Washington has gone to Alabama for a lot of their defensive players.
Yeah.
And a lot of Ohio State guys as well. I mean, Washington is like to draft, and I know there's some changing of the guard in the front office, so maybe that changes. But Washington has done a lot of drafting the SEC, drafting Ohio State, hasn't always worked out, of course, of late. And I think it's about grabbing guys who play at the highest level in college because that's usually the best test for the NFL.
They have a high floor, is what it is.
Exactly, yeah.
It might not be the highest ceiling, but you know that they're being coached to basically be NFL guys right away. We're about out of time, but Steve, one thing I always ask you towards the end of every time we have you on is to give me one kind of sleeper who we should be watching who Washington should really be watching, because it doesn't matter how much I watch them. But who would be your sleeper this year? A guy who probably isn't going in the first 2 days, but someone who you think could really be a great player in the NFL.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah. I would point to this could be more like a 3rd round, 4th round type guy. I think one thing that this is, and we didn't really talk about it just given some of the other needs, and of course going out and getting Curtis Samuel, but wide receiver I think is still a long-term need. I mean, you add Adam Humphries as well, but that's clearly just a short-term stopgap
thing, yeah.
So, for 2021, Washington's got a decent receiver group right now. But long-term, it's still Terry McClellan and, Samuel's obviously here for a couple years. But one guy that I've liked, I think he's getting pushed down just because it's a extremely deep and talented receiver group.
Mm-hmm.
About on par with last year, which we saw a lot of really good, talented guys. I mentioned his brother earlier, but Sage Surratt from Wake Forest, 6'3", good size. I think in most draft classes he's top 50, maybe top 75 at worst. I think he could get pushed down to kind of more of the late 3rd, early 4th type area. Not the most explosive receiver, but just a smart guy, and who watching him in this area, watch a lot of ACC, and saw him over the years at Wake, and he just always impressed me. And again, this was a weird year. He opted out of it. He did play in the Senior Bowl, so you got to see him a little there, but he opted out of the season, so it's tougher to get a read on him, and I think that's why he's not talked about as much. But wouldn't shock me if he ends up like a 4th round pick who a year or two from now is a good solid starter.
Okay. I thought you were about to say Amon-Ra St. Brown there when you said brother, because he's the brother of the guy from the Packers.
Yeah. No, the receiver's a deep group. I really hope Washington grabs at least one in this class.
Yeah, I would say receiver, linebacker. Are those the 2 deepest? I know, like we said, there are 5 quarterbacks that everyone seems in love with, but then there's some drop off.
I think running back is fairly strong. Maybe not crazy deep, but I think running back's pretty decent. There's some guys that I think will end up on day 3 who, like every year that we see, make waves in the NFL for sure. So corner would be the other position that's pretty deep.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, good cornerback group too. Unfortunately, it feels like Washington kind of covered their bases on a lot of those groups in free agency. But
yeah. I mean, the one thing I will say is, never totally believe that free agency eliminates you from the draft. It might push down the need from, say, the 1st round, but a great example is the Browns last year. They spent huge on Jack Conklin and Austin Hooper in free agency. They went out and got a tackle in the 1st round. Obviously, you need 2 tackles, but then they grab a tight end in the 3rd round in Bryant. So and tight end is not a position that you have a lot of 2 guys on the offense at the same time. And again, that was with Njoku just a couple years prior. So I definitely could see a corner and receiver in that 3rd, 4th range with those 3 picks that Washington has.
Oh yeah.
As a real quick housekeeping thing, Washington did make a bunch of roster moves. They cut Caleb Brantley, Emmanuel Hall, the receiver, Javon Leak, the running back, Thad Moss, who Alex mentioned earlier, and Michael Warren. I don't think any of those guys are going to be any sort of great loss.
Did I also see,
that was roster
or
moves.
was somebody joking that they finally let go of Tenard Jackson?
I didn't even honestly realize that he was still on the list.
Yeah.
He was still on the suspended list.
It's this weird like reserve list because they released somebody else from retirement one, and then the injured reserve. I don't know.
Well, yeah, Tenard Jackson was on the reserve suspended list because the NFL's had him suspended all this time. Washington could have cut him. They're not paying him anything.
Right.
You know, that's just a housekeeping matter. I hadn't even put him on my roster chart.
They just kind of forgot that he was still on that. You know, that they had that right.
Who was the other person that was on? It was like a reserve. Oh, I think it was like Will Montgomery. That one was on the list too. I think
it was Corey Lichtensteiger, I think.
Oh yeah, him. It was one of the Corey was offensive line.
Yeah. Yeah, it is funny when that kind of stuff happens, isn't it? Oh, we kind of forgot he was here. Write him on there.
All it is it doesn't cost them anything to withhold, to hang on to their rights. And if a miracle happened and Tenard Jackson stopped snorting coke and got his life together, you'd have his rights. And at this point, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's the point.
Well, yeah, I think he's 42 at this point.
I don't know if Jackson was snorting coke, but I mean, he was a drug addict. So.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was a weed suspension that got him.
I don't know, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those funny things.
On that note.
Yeah, on that note, great having you on again, Steve. Of course, like we said, fan speak, you know, the father of all these draft sites now. And I'm almost sorry it seems like you have so much competition in that regard. But
now you told us last year, I think, Steve, that you like the classic better than the difficult mode. I think you said that, right? What's the difference?
Yeah, just it's a little difficult. Makes it a little less likely for some guys to slide, and especially in a year like this when I just feel like so much stuff's up in the air. I don't mind because, as I've said before, I always look at the draft simulator. I'm not trying to predict the exact draft. I'm trying to allow for different plausible scenarios because we see it every year. I mean, you know, nobody thought Jonathan Allen was falling to Washington, you know, a couple of years ago, et cetera, et cetera. Like we see it every single year. And, you know, I think people want those scenarios to play out because, I mean, that's what NFL teams look. No NFL team, you know, Washington's not sitting there at 19 saying these are exactly the 18 guys who are going off before us. They're saying, no, this could happen, this could happen. So let's try out these different scenarios. Who could still be there? What would it then take to maybe move up 5 spots for this player or that player? So that's how I look at it. And Classic, I feel, can allow that a little bit more, a wider range of scenarios. So I kind of like that. And just because I feel like, you know, every year in the draft, we see that. We see the surprises. Sometimes it's due to trade. Sometimes it's just guys slide and fall. So, yeah, you know, I think we like having different options for people, obviously, but Classic will have a little bit more variability, which can make it a little bit more fun when you're picking kind of in the middle of the round.
And just as an additional plug for the site, he's also got the master board listed as the master player database listed. And so this is a super easy way just to go look at every player ranked 1 through 300 and however many it is, and just go through and start clicking and reading. So there's another plug.
By the way, I just for to close this out, I've got it open right now. I'm doing a mock draft. First round option, we got JOK from Notre Dame. I still see Micah Parsons on here. Well, Nick Bolton's way down, but so we got, you know, the top 2 linebackers. I would be skipping up to the podium if those 2 guys were still there. So
yeah,
you know, I think that's where I would go. I don't know about the rest of the crew here. So anyway, Steve, great having you on. Folks, make sure you're checking out his site. The draft is 2 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away. Yeah. So now's the time that everyone starts mock drafting like mad.
It's Steve Shoup's Super Bowl. Are you already working on 2022? I assume you are.
Starting to, yeah.
Yeah. I assume that never ends. you probably got
Not really.
2023 already in the works, 2024.
Listen, people, this guy knows. Reason we keep having him on is he knows these players better than anybody.
Yeah.
Forget Mel Kiper, who's just a mouthpiece with bad hair, and Todd McShay. This guy, Steve Shoup, knows these players better than anybody. So this is why I love having him on. So we really appreciate having you come on every year.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
thanks,
I like
good
you
talk.
because you don't do like a fake. Here's what's going to happen and get it all wrong, like one of those guys that's
Like Mel,
yes,
who bet his retirement on who's the Notre Dame quarterback and then didn't retire.
Clausen.
Jimmy Clausen.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
You bet your retirement on Jimmy Clausen and then you don't retire. Go away, Mel.
Yeah. All right, guys. Good talking to you, and we will see you next week.